All right, welcome everybody to the Great American Little Town podcast, episode number 2. Today is October the 23rd, 2024. I'm excited about our show tonight. For those of you who don't know, I am your host, Shawn Farmer, with my co-host over here, Mr. Dan Denier.
That's me.
And today we have a couple of great guests. First, Miss Katherine Harper. We'll go into a little more about Katherine in a moment, but thank you for being here.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
So tonight we have a great show. We're going to be talking about Galt Schools, all things schools. We had some people send in some questions in advance, and I'm looking forward to seeing some questions from you guys on the live chat. So I want to remind you, we do have a live chat during the show. You can type in your question. We'd ask you that you kind of keep it related to the topic so we don't get overwhelmed. There is a bit of a delay, so we will see it though after a few seconds. And we were going to be talking about some road construction updates. We talk about a little bit of some sports updates and some local community Halloween activities and events that are happening this week over the next couple weeks. And then the new thing we're going to be doing is some Galt Trivia towards the end of the show. So we got some great prizes from some local businesses, and we'll be handing those out to the people who are participating online. So let's get right to it. So today our guest is Katherine Harper, from the elementary school board. Katherine, tell us about yourself.
Thanks for having me on. So my name's Katherine. I have lived in Galt for about 15 years. My husband and I bought a house here and we're raising our kids here. We love Galt and we love how easy it is to raise a family here, how family friendly it is. And I've been on the board for 2 years. So I was elected in November of 2022 and I've served half my term. I don't know. What else do you want to know?
That's pretty good. So you have been on for 2 years?
2 years.
2 years.
Yep.
All right. And actually hold that thought for a second because I forgot I had a disclaimer I'm supposed to read and I forgot.
Okay.
I skipped over the agenda.
Go for
So
it.
yeah, just a little housekeeping first, folks. All right. So the Great American Little Town podcast is an independently operated, not-for-profit broadcast, and any statements, views, especially statements or views from Mr. Denier.
Wait a minute, not for profit.
Or expressed.
We were making money.
Not for, well, hold on. I think I have somewhere else I need to be right now.
Me too.
Any statements or views expressed by the host or its guests should be considered independent of the city of Galt, unless otherwise noted. This podcast is neither sponsored or approved by the city of Galt as an official city news source. The views and discussions of this podcast are solely that of the host and intended only as an independent source of news and entertainment. Hopefully entertainment.
And I want to include on behalf of our guests, they are here as one person,
Yes.
individual. They're
Yes.
not here representing the entire board or the entire district of the
Yes.
schools.
Thank you. I was going to say that. I'm here representing myself and not the whole board. So,
Exactly.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Very, very important to mention that. Yeah. Because we don't want to violate anything. And we're not going to be talking about, hey, Katherine, so what are you going to vote on that one thing in next week at the meeting? We're not going to go into that kind of stuff because that's just not appropriate talk. We're here to inform people and have a good discussion about some school stuff. So 2 years on the board.
Yes.
So you guys are district voting, right?
We are. Yes. Actually,
Yeah.
when I ran, that was the first district voting election that they had.
And did you,
Yeah.
did you run unopposed?
I did not run unopposed. I ran against 2 other people.
Good for you. I'm
Yeah.
glad. So you earned it.
I did.
Yeah, it wasn't a
Yeah.
walk-on. But that does happen. Was there any districts in the election that were walk-ons?
There was. It was, I think, at District 5.
Okay.
The Lake Canyon, each district it was a walk-on, 2 years ago.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not Lake Canyon. It's Annette's district, which
Okay.
is not Lake Canyon.
Okay. So, yeah, and because Dan and I had a conversation about how the city council is going districting last,
Yes.
and we had a really robust conversation
So
about that.
interesting.
So you guys are witnessing that and experienced that firsthand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll maybe come back to that in a few minutes. So schools. So, there's a lot of things they're talked about. I get a lot of questions about schools, Katherine, and we'll just dive right into them. So one of the biggest, we're going to talk about the school bond, which is on the ballot.
Measure age.
Measure age, very important. So before we talk about that, let's
measure age for Harper. Is it?
Yeah.
I don't think they named it after me.
Yeah. And just so everybody
You can take
knows,
the credit, it's okay.
Oh, I can.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yes, they definitely named it after me.
and just so everybody knows, we are not here to advocate for or against the school bond. We are simply here to inform and try to explain what it is and try to answer questions about it. So I just want to be clear on that. But before we get to that, so one of the biggest things that I hear is all these houses are being built. Like you see houses being built everywhere. how is it possible that we're going to have enough room for all the kids?
Mhm.
So let's talk
Yeah.
about enrollment right now.
Sure.
So tell us about the current state of enrollment for the Galt Elementary District.
So we did see a dip in our enrollment the last couple of years, and then we finally hit sort of an even keel. Our enrollment is the same this year as it is last year, which is good news.
Right. It's not declining anymore.
It's not declining. That's not the pattern right now.
Okay. But it's not going up.
It has not yet. No,
Okay.
not yet. But we're really early in the. I mean, these developers have just picked these houses up, is my understanding. So we may be seeing that in the future.
Well, and I mean, and hopefully for the district, you do see that because, you know, you guys are paid based on head count.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Enrollment. Yep.
Enrollment.
And
So
attendance. Yep.
So what happens is not only contrary to what people's perception is that we're building all these houses, so we're going to need a ton more kids, but the perception is that, you know, we need more schools. But the reality is that, you know, we're not seeing a bump currently. We're not seeing a jump up, even with, and we have a handful of subdivisions that have been completed and people are living there in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And we have not seen a serious increase. Like we haven't seen a good boost from that.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of reasons for that.
And what do you think those reasons are?
Yeah. So people are having less children than
Right.
they used to. I think
That's
that's
a
a
biggie.
huge
That's
thing.
big, yeah.
Also, people are opting to, use other options for schools. So especially after school closures and lockdowns during COVID, there are a lot of people that left the school district and they decided they were happy homeschooling. They were happy attending private school and they never came back. So we did pick up kids who did come back after COVID lockdown, but there was many that did not.
Right. So it's, and I actually have a lot of friends who either have their kids in private school, charter school, or they homeschool. I was surprised. Some of them I didn't even realize that they were doing that. And they're very happy with that. Another factor is we still do have people exiting California. So people are taking their kids and families and leaving.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah. I had an interesting stat shared with me. So I'm on CAST, which you know that we talk about. So CAST is cities and schools together. So I, as a council member, and another council member, which currently is Kevin Papanow, we serve on CAST. So we have the superintendents, two elementary board members, 2 high school board members. Our next guest, Terry Parker, who's going to be on the second half of the show, she's on that CAST as well. And so we meet every other month and we talk about how can the cities and the schools work together. You know, we talk about things like school safety, blah, 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 all this stuff. But anyway, so I make that point is that we had a statistic that was shared with me, gosh, it was probably 6 months ago. And it said that in 1972, the average family in California had 2.6 children per household. The average today is 0.4.
Yeah.
That is a staggering change. So basically you have half a child is the average yield from a household. So, and it's because, like you said, millennials, Gen Z, and whatever they call the new generation. There's one after Gen Z, right?
It's Alpha, actually.
Alpha, yeah.
They're not quite having kids yet, though.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But the ones that are millennials and Gen Z, they're just not having kids. Maybe when they do have, it's like one, or they're just not. I mean, they're waiting longer to get married, waiting longer to have children. It's really a society change. I think it's a shift.
Yes.
And that is impacting, the school district attendance.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Enrollment for sure.
And part of it goes back to the legislature of California, though. It's not the problem. Like, and you mentioned that the schools are funded based on enrollment, and that's part of the problem. Is so as your enrollment goes up, your funding changes, or if your enrollment goes down, your funding changes. Your costs are going to stay the same most of the time, especially if enrollment goes down, right? But your funding is going to be less by the state. So, in my opinion, and I've said this for years, is that the problem with school funding is a legislature problem in the state of California. And when people get upset about the way schools are funded, or if they get upset about a bond or something coming on their ballot, they have to remember Sacramento is not sending enough money to the local schools. And that's where the biggest issue is.
Right.
They're not using your tax dollars to fund the schools the way they should be funded.
So basically what's happening is you have, the money you guys get is based on head count. If that head count's not increasing, then your money's not increasing, but everything else is increasing. Maintenance costs, teacher salaries, just the cost to do business, just like anything, everybody's seeing it. I mean, unless you're living under a rock somewhere in like Iceland, that costs of everything are up. Same for the school district. And so,
Yeah, well, we have found ourselves having to cut teacher positions. I mean, that is something that happens where if you don't have enough enrollment, then unfortunately you have to make
have
some
to
of
make
those
hard
cuts.
sacrifices.
You have to cut instructional assistants and you have to cut teachers. Yeah, but you're right about the facilities. I mean, the facilities stay there, they age, and they don't, disappear. I'm just thinking about San Francisco school district right now is closing schools
Wow.
because people are, just fleeing San Francisco. San
Right.
Francisco is not a good place to raise kids. It's not a kid-friendly place. And they lost a lot of students too when it came to, lockdown and school closure. And so they are actually having a lot of trouble right now dealing with their financial issues. And then also they're having to close schools, and it's making people unhappy.
So, which leads me to another, talking about these myths. I think one of the highest questions that I get, and people send me questions about schools, and I'm not on the school board, so it's weird that they ask me, but they just think, I have the answers.
You should know everything.
Yeah.
Why don't you?
I want to thank you, and also, Tracy Skinner. There's other people, Annette. I actually lean on you guys. I message you guys and email you, hey, I had a question posed to me, and you guys are always willing to educate me on school stuff that I don't know, so that I can go back to my constituents and say, here's the answer to that. Or sometimes I'll just point them to you guys, but you guys are always really good with communicating, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest things I hear is, when are we going to build another middle school? So we have one middle school, McCaffrey Middle School, and everybody wants to know, when are we going to build another middle school? Because it's so crowded and it's so, overwhelming. So let's talk about that. So let's break it down, Katherine.
Yes, I'm about to drop some facts for you. So if I could wear a t-shirt around Galt that says McCaffrey is not overcrowded, I would probably, I could do that, I guess. But here's the deal with McCaffrey. So that school was built to house about 1,200 students. And right now the enrollment is about 780 students. And my understanding is that it was as high as 1,100 students. And so enrollment has fallen quite a bit there. I think people get the idea that it's overcrowded because the pickup and drop off situation is such a zoo.
I believe so.
And it's in a residential area. And I don't know what the laws are about building schools with so many feet away from houses or neighborhoods, but that's probably one big reason why people feel like that. But it is not overcrowded. We are not going to be building another middle school anytime soon. We're not going to be closing Greer and then reopening it as a middle school. So all the things I hear that are we going to do? Yep. So there you go. You heard it right from the facts don't get any clearer than from the actual board. These people are in the know. That's what they do. They're elected to know this stuff, and they talk about this stuff on a regular basis. And those numbers are fresh off the press as of today. What's also interesting is, that myth that we need a middle school, but also another piece of data that was shared with me is, and this could be a little old, it's about a year old. I was told that we basically yield one elementary student for every 4 households. So it takes 4 new houses to be built in Galt, new development, to yield 1 elementary student, and it was 7 to yield 1 high school student. So if that data still remains correct, you would basically have to build 400 houses to yield 40 students. Yeah.
Right? So we need 400 more houses to yield 40 students. And right now we're at 700.
Classes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you can see that people see this development, they see these houses being built, but the reality is there's really not enough houses to build to really give a big shot in the arm to those numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. These houses are not going to be stuffed full of children, most likely. So.
Yeah. So let's talk about Measure H. Now that we've kind of established the scenario with the schools and stuff, and again, we're not advocating for this, but Measure H is a school bond that's on the ballot. Now, don't want people to confuse this with, because there's some people watching. I have a friend from Herald watching. There is a Measure M.
Yes.
That is for Arcoe.
Yes.
This is not that. This is Measure H, which is for Galt. So if you live in the country, you're not going to see Measure H on your ballot, and vice versa for the people in the county. So Measure H is a school bond that's it's on the ballot right now. You can vote on it election day if you haven't already voted. So Katherine, tell us about what Measure H is.
Yeah, so Measure H is a $27 million bond that would, if it does pass, it would be 3 cents of every $100 assessed value on your property. And if you want to know more about it, you can go to the Galt Joint Unified Elementary District website, and under our schools, there's a drop down for our schools, and Measure H is the first option. And so if you go there, you can view our facilities plan. So about a year ago, we did a complete facilities overview and survey. There are so many photos up there about just that show damage to roofs. It shows holes in the walls. It shows concrete that needs to be repaired. It shows parking lots that need to be reconfigured, especially for like safety reasons. And so those are some of the needs. It's very clear if you just scroll through the photos, just what needs to be done. And it's all routine maintenance and wear and tear on buildings. And it's just, you know, it's the way it goes, especially since now we have summer school programs that have been meeting there the last 2 summers. And so we've got even more wear and tear in our buildings than we had before. Valley Oaks was built in 1967. And so we've been able to replace one building, but we've got portables that are falling apart. And that's why we put Measure H on the ballot. It did seem to us that the voters were amenable to passing Measure H. So we didn't just put it on the ballot, you know, as a
took a survey.
We did take a survey. Yeah, we did. We hired a firm to do a pretty extensive survey. We didn't want to spend our money and put resources out for something that we didn't feel like was going to pass. And so we're just, you know, putting it out there for the voters, thinking that they have indicated to us that they do want to pass it. But, you know, of course, the one big poll that happens is happening in November. And so we'll see after that. But
how many schools are in the elementary district? There's 7?
There's 7.
Right. So there's
yes.
7 separate campuses,
Yes.
7 separate, you know, wear and tear on buildings.
Yes.
And the newest campus is, you know which one?
Lake Canyon, I mean, it's at least 10 years old, if not older.
Right.
I would say of all of them, Lake Canyon doesn't have some of the big needs, but there are needs there.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I would just encourage anyone who's curious to go look at the photos of the roofs and just everything that I just mentioned, that there are real needs there, and they're not getting better. Like if we don't fix them now, we're looking at more repairs down the road if we leave them there. So
we have a little technical issue. I hate to interrupt. I'm going to pause this conversation. So our chat's not working right now. So we've been trying to fix it for about a minute or 2, but it's really important we have our live chat working. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to just sign off real quick, and we are going to restart back up. So don't go anywhere. People who are viewing, you can, if you're on the channel already, you can just simply this stream will end, and then a new one will start right back up. So we will be back in literally probably less than a minute or 2. So I apologize for this, but we want to be sure we can field live questions in the live chat. So we'll just take a quick pause, and we'll be back with a new stream. Make sure you click and start rewatching when we relaunch. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you.